Hey everyone, Effie here. Today I'm going to show you how to layer our new special day lanterns, layering stencils. There are 8 stencils in this collection. Each stencil has etched numbers on them. They also have our patent pending layering guides. Stencils 4, 5, 6, and 7 are thinner stencils. And then you have stencil 8 with some of the extras. Before you begin blending, take stencil 1 and 4, align the squares together and put them onto your cardstock to make sure that you're able to blend all the images onto your cardstock. We tape down stencil 1 onto our cardstock, masked off the top portion of our cardstock, and then you want to hold down the center portion of the lanterns as you're blending this first layer. We're using Medallion ink. I wanted to make a seamless blend so that for the design, you have to hold down the center of the lantern as you blend. So we're going to take off stencil 1, place down stencil 2. We've aligned the lower right hand corner of the stencil to our cardstock. And I went in with Marigold for stencil number 2. And then when you're done blending stencil number 2, take that off. We're going to place down stencil 3, align the squares of the stencil to the squares that are already blended on our cardstock. Now stencil 3 has 2 elements. You have the third layer of the lanterns. We're going to use honey for the lantern portion of the stencil, and then we're going to use Rosy peach for the first layer of our flowers, which is along the top portion of stencil number 3. Then we're going to take off stencil 3 and we're going to replace it with stencil number 4. We want to align the squares of the stencil to the squares that are already blended on our cardstock. And then we're going to go in with our Rouge ink for the second layer of our florals. Then we're going to replace stencil number 4 with 5. Make sure you mask off the bottom portion of your cardstock with some scrap paper so you don't accidentally get some ink blending into the lantern area. So we use raspberry for the third layer of our flowers, and then we replace stencil 5 with 6, which is the first layer of our foliage. Then we're going to replace stencil 6 with 7. And remember, just keep aligning the squares of the stencil onto the squares on your cardstock. We went in with Melon with stencil number 6, and then Jade with stencil number 7, which is a darker green. For stencil number 8, we're going to go ahead and align the candles inside our lanterns. And we're just going to use Rosy peach for the entire body of the candles. I went in with a little bit of bubble gum, which is a darker shade of pink, and I just added a little bit of shading to the bottom portions of the candle. I had added a piece of scrap onto the center of this stencil so that I don't get any ink blending where you see the flame. So I'm just going to align the stencil once again and just slide it down so that the flames are positioned right above the candle. And I went in with grapefruit for the 3 flames. This is how the images look when you blend all 8 layers. And this is the coordinating die that we just released. It is one die that will cut out all 3 lanterns in one single shot. And then there's an additional die that will cut out the rope or the string that you can quote unquote hang your lanterns on your cards. If you have the original Special Day Lanterns layering stamp set and die, the dies should coordinate with this stencil set. However, we did re-release the die into a grouped die so that you can cut everything out at once. Next, I die cut the strings onto white cardstock and then blended trunk onto the die cuts. And then I used our nested dome dies and the cover plate slim border die, which creates the multiple frames all in one single shot. So I used the third largest die from the nested die set, and then I just used the coordinating slim border die cut, and I'm going to use those 2 together. And remember, the nested dies create the solid panels, and then the cover plate die creates the frames. So I took the panel, placed it onto my grip mat, and blended some Melon ink onto the lower right hand portion of my panel corner. I also added some Medallion ink blending also. Next, I added the slim border frame along the edges of that panel. And then I took our A2 slim border frame die and I die cut that onto white cardstock we're just going to use the largest frame that was produced from that die cut. I glued it onto some striped cardstock that we created with our background stamp. Then we're just going to add the dome blended die cut onto the center of our background. Then I started positioning my lanterns onto the card, and I'm varying the height to give the card a little bit more interest. Next, I adhered some of the string onto the background of the card so that the lanterns don't look like they're floating. Then we took the congrats sentiment from our fancy script 6x8 stamp set, and we stamped it onto some white cardstock and die cut it using the coordinating die. This set has a really nice variety of beautiful script sentiments. I popped up the congrats sentiment onto my card and added some green rhinestones to finish off with the embellishment of the card. So this card is complete. However, I am going to go ahead and make a second card. I previously created these die cuts. I'm just using one of the leftover negative pieces of the dome negative die cut that you see in the background that I created with the dome die cut from the first card, and I'm just reusing it. I added it onto some craft cardstock. That's my A2 background. I added the lanterns the same way, added the string and the thank you sentiment from the same set, and finish it off with some purple rhinestones.